Welcome back to Andersen Acres. We're out here with Shadowfax again, who has scattered and spilled his water buckets. So I'm going to have to fill those up right after I film him. Hi, Smooches. Hi, Smoochy. Smoochy! Mwah. Nice. And smooches for goats? Mwah. We get smooches. Everyone gets smooches because it's fun. Yeah, smooches from goats. No? Oh, thanks. Anyway, today I wanted to start talking about the coat patterns. So we've talked about colors, we've talked about the basic colors, and then we've talked about modifiers. Mwah! Smooch smooches. Moustache. So now I want to talk about the patterns, but we're only going to talk about one pattern variation a day, and there's only a couple of them really. Even though each pattern has its own variations, that's why I'm only talking about one a day. Thank you. So I am going to talk about the Pinto pattern today. Pinto pattern is large white markings across the body alternating with the base color. It can be minimally expressed or completely expressed or anything in between. Horses might have little to no white hair, or they might be almost completely white. Be quiet. Goat bum. You're a goat bum. Be quiet. Yeah, you should be quiet. She doesn't listen. So there's actually 3 different Pinto genes that you might encounter. So the first is tobiano. This is your traditional Pinto. Okay, the tobiano gene is your traditional Pinto. These have tobiano horses, or horses that carry the tobiano gene, have regular and even splotches. So their color spots will have will have absolutely regular edges. They won't be irregular, they won't be all weird. Regular splotches. Okay? Thank you. Yes, we're all talking. He's talking to Tristan. She's talking to my dad. And the dogs are over there causing a ruckus. Look, it's ruckus town right now. Crazy town. That's what's happening. Anyway, so the tobianos have fairly even patches. They don't have ragged edges. And it probably crosses the spine. So a tobiano Pinto will have a spot that goes across the spine. Okay, instead of the spine being all one color and the spots being mostly on the sides, the tobianos will probably have a spot that crosses the spine. Okay? There might be some white on the head or the legs, maybe, but it's less likely. Okay, you probably won't have white on the head or legs, but you could. You could. It's not a firm rule. It really depends on the expression. Minimally marked tobianos could seriously pass as a solid color horse, and they have. And then you're kind of surprised when they throw a Pinto gene and the baby is a Pinto when they're breeding. So yeah, tobiano can hide pretty well. It's pretty good at hiding. A thoroughly expressed tobiano might look almost white. Okay? He's not tobiano. I know I've said he's a Pinto. He does not have a tobiano gene. Yes, we're calling Tristan. I know. I will tell him. Can we just finish filming? If you're homozygous for tobiano, so that means you have 2 genes, 2 tobiano genes side by side. Okay? If you get one from your mom and one from your dad, you're a homozygous tobiano. Those horses, they don't express it more than a horse with 1 gene. But it does mean that they'll pass, definitely 100% for sure, will pass a tobiano gene to their offspring. So that's good for breeding. If you specifically want to breed Pintos, it's an excellent thing to try. But in order to guarantee that you're passing it down to the offspring, they have to be homozygous for tobiano. Okay? So the next type of Pinto is the overo. That's what he is. Remember, I keep saying he's a Pinto. He's a Palomino Pinto. He's an overo Pinto. He is positive for the overo gene. We talked about that when we talked about color testing. So these guys have white markings just like the tobiano Pintos, but shh. I know. He's coming. You just have to give him a minute. You just have to give him a minute. Give him 5 minutes. Hang on a second. They're very noisy today because Tristan's over there and they just want to talk to him. So, yeah. Anyway, so he's an overo. They have white markings, yes, just like the tobiano, but they tend to be more irregular. So they have their base color, and then they have more irregular markings, so the edges aren't quite as smooth. They're quite ragged, and they probably do not cross the spine. Okay, so with an overo, usually there would be color down the center, and the sides would have white splotches. Don't bite the camera. You have issues. Often they have one or more dark legs, and they'll have a distinctive face with a lot of white. All of them are heterozygous. You cannot be homozygous for the overo gene because the overo gene is also known as the lethal white gene, and inheriting 2 of them means the foal dies within 24 hours of being born. So you do not have heterozygous overo ponies, okay? If your pinto is an overo, it only has 1 copy of the gene. Don't breed your overo pinto to another overo pinto because 25% chance the baby's gonna die. Very sad, don't do it, okay? The last type of pinto is the Sabino. This is actually my personal favorite. Sorry, Shadowfax, you're an overo and that should be my favorite, but it's not. So, I really like the Sabinos. Why are we taking a picture of just your back? Why are you biting me? Biting. Smooches. Mwah, smooches. So, the Sabino, think about a Clydesdale. Okay, picture a Clydesdale for a minute, because a Clydesdale actually has traditional Sabino markings, at least most of them. So think those white socks, white face, white belly, and roan patches on the body. Okay, not necessarily all entirely roan, but quite a lot of roan patches. Okay? These can all be expressed by Sabino, and the Clydesdale is actually the perfect expression of the Sabino gene. They're beautiful horses. I love them. Frankly, I love most horses, so let's be fair. So the Sabino gene can also cause blue eyes, roan spots on the body, jagged or mottled markings. That's how you end up with some really interesting patterns, is through the Sabino. Maximum expression could be nearly white, almost like the maximum expression of the lethal white. So you could mistake him for a Sabino, but he's not. Genetically, he's not. He carries lethal white. So the minimal expression, they might just have 1 blue eye. Maybe they have a sock or a roan patch over their hip or shoulder. Minimally expressed, you'll still find it, but you may have to look a little harder. Now, we can test for the Sabino gene, just like we can test for all the other genes, but some Sabino genes are not showing up on tests yet, because we can't test for them yet. Okay, so not all Sabino genes show up. So if you have a definite Sabino horse, and he doesn't test positive for a Sabino, it's because he has one of the variants that simply does not test for yet. So it'll not pop positive or negative. We just don't have a test for those yet. We're not perfect. Scientists are figuring it out. But, you know, things take time. So there are many, many types, combinations, and variations of the pinto genes, meaning you'll have nearly endless varieties of pintos. No 2 pintos are quite the same. Their spots will be different. They'll express their pinto-ness a little bit differently. So you might have just a couple of spots on the body. You might have almost totally white. You might have very little white. So either way, pintos are adorable. They're fantastic. And I really do like pintos. Most people do. Pintos are completely awesome. Right, Shadowfax? You're a pinto. You are. He is genetically a pinto. I've had some people argue with me. He is a pinto, I swear. It's just, you know, lethal white kind of took over. So, he's a pinto, I promise. Anyway, next time when we come back to Shadowfax in next week's video, we are going to talk about Appaloosa patterns. They are fantastic and frankly adorable in mini horses. Until then, we'll see you tomorrow.